Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this year. I was here last year as well, and it's a great honour to be here. For my doctoral thesis, which was based on the survival of Jewish doctors in Auschwitz, my research commenced and was largely dependent on diaries, testimonies and memoirs of doctors who survived Auschwitz. Initially, they revealed a collective pattern that portrayed the conditions in Auschwitz that led me to believe in and accept the indescribable inhumanity and consequent culture of evil that existed. After repeated reading and close scrutiny of individual memoirs, I found in some discrepancies, inaccuracies and omissions. As sources of truth, these memoirs were ultimately assessed in a different light, or at the very least, viewed and interpreted with caution. To the historians, memoirs, diaries and testimonies form part of the fabric of history, and truth is at their very core. If memoirs are to be used as sources, historians must be able to distinguish fact from fiction. A distinction needs to be made between memory loss, the effects of trauma on memory, and outright deception by commission or omission. Memory can be categorised into individual or collective memories. Collective memory is the narration of the experiences of a group of individuals who experience the same or similar incidents. The shaping of collective memory can be accomplished through the influence of media, political journals, etc. When a large number of survivors describe the same traumatic events, distortion of memory may occur on a collective basis. And this, an example of this is the number of survivors that said that they met Mengele, which isn't fact. The collective memory has a greater impact than individual memory because collective memory can be accepted as the norm by the impact of sheer force of numbers. Historians have a different view as to the value of memoirs. Raoul Hilberg initially questioned and even refuted the value of memoirs based on the fragility of memory. Christopher Browning argues the historian should concede that serious problems confront the use of eyewitness accounts as a source. However, Robert Langer, on the other hand, contends memoirs play a vital role in recording history. How do we assess the reliability of memoirs? We know that individual memory is subjective and can change with the passage of time. We also know that a memoir is an edited account of what the narrator wishes to share. Documentation may prove that a survivor was in Auschwitz. However, it becomes apparent that in his or her memoir, he embellished facts or omitted certain actions or erased individuals from the story. What are the motives? How has the story been affected? What is the impact on history? As historians, it is not a matter of passing judgment on the emotions or actions and behaviour of a survivor or survivors. It is a matter of questioning the facts provided by survivors that can influence the authenticity and reliability of memoirs. The status of the survivor has been elevated to an almost sacred level, whereby questioning of events described or accusations of embellishment or fabrication are often either dismissed, considered disrespectful, or used as fodder for the case for denial of the Holocaust. do we resist, as historians, critical analysis of the facts and falsehoods in the revered name and eminence of the survivor? Or do we accept the broader picture of inhumanity and suffering in our assessment, yet at the same time insist on the right to question and reveal inconsistencies and inaccuracies despite the discomfort, embarrassment and hurt it may cause? Do we as historians have a responsibility to critically examine and publicly question the authenticity of memoirs of the likes of Elie Wiesel, Primo Levi, or Jean Emery? It is interesting that it took almost 60 years to critically examine Viktor Frankl's memoir and expose irregularities and falsehoods. A memoir that I'm going to briefly discuss today is that of Gisela Perl. I was a doctor in Auschwitz, and I know it has been publicly critiqued, but I'm going to just concentrate on a particular issue, which is the beginning of her, the post period before she goes to Auschwitz and when she arrives at Auschwitz. I found it noteworthy because some of it is clearly a product of fiction, poor memory and circumstances that cannot be substantiated. I have not the time to discuss it in depth, but there are answers to some of these irregularities that on first glance make one question the authenticity of some of the events. And it is a very complex matter. The whole book is very complex, which I can't explain. I haven't got the time. In her memoir, we learn that Dr. Pearl's family includes her husband, her son, and Elizabeth, a 16-year-old Christian girl the family took into their home after she was raped. Pearl tells us that her family included her son, that is about 13 or 14, was sent to the camp before being transported to Auschwitz. Upon arrival at Auschwitz, Pearl said she was selected to go to the labour camp while her family, including her husband and son, mother and father, and extended family were sent to the gas. According to Pearl, my son just looked at me with his big blue eyes, quote, "Mother," they said, "Mother," end of quote. Pearl acknowledges those who, quote, "those who went left were taken to the crematorium to die a horrible death in the constantly burning fire." However, are these the facts? Through interviews of family members, of which I had a coffee with the grandson yesterday, archival research and further examination of Pearl's memoir and other survivor memoirs, I constructed a different version of parts of her story before and at the beginning of her internment at Auschwitz. These disclosures question the authenticity and reliability, if not the memoir itself, then definitely vital parts of it. I found that Gisela Pearl was married to Dr. Francis Krauss in 1920, and they had a daughter, Ella, born in 1928, and a son, Imre, born in 1922. At the time the family was shipped to or went to Auschwitz, Ella was 16 and Imre was 22. If you remember in the book, only Imre was mentioned, and he was a young boy of 13 or 14. According to my research, Pearl and her extended family, with the exception of Imre, Ella and Helen, Gazelle's sister, went to Auschwitz. This is a photo of Emery and Ella. I'll just go through these. This is the great-grandparents of Ella, who's Pearl's daughter. This is Emery before he went to before he went to a labour camp. This is Gazella Pearl before, when she was a medical student. Now, these are two postcards written by the grandmother of Pearl, or Granny. And this is when they're at the camp before they go to Auschwitz. This was interpreted or translated by Ella, who's the daughter of Gazella. So that's the original postcard that I have. This is by Gazella to her children, including Ella. And that's translated by Ella so that I could read it. We are at Solomon Street in the schoolyard together with us, a granddaddy and grandnanny, etc. We are leaving now. All my life I loved and took care of you, Ella and Helen, her sister. Now you need to take care and love each other, loving you with all my heart, etc. And that is the grandson who I met yesterday, and I've met on quite a number of times. So upon arrival at Auschwitz, with the exception of Gazelle, family members were sent to the gas chamber. But both Helen and Ella were in Budapest at the time of the Jewish population of Szeged, including the rest of Pearl's family, were sent to the ghettos and then to Auschwitz. According to Ella, Emre was sent to a labour camp by the Nazis, and she was told he was shot while attempting to escape. According to Ella, Elizabeth, who was raped and taken in by Pearl, was one of the servants and wasn't a adopted child taken. She was a servant in the family. It is not until the very end of the book that Pearl again mentions her family when she tells of wandering on foot throughout Germany for 19 days trying to find her husband and son. Why Germany? Why did she go through Germany when the husband when she was in Poland, in Auschwitz? And she's looking for her husband and finds or writes that he was beaten to death and her son had been cremated. On learning this terrible news, she confesses her life is over and she once again attempts suicide. This is extremely confusing, for in the beginning of the book she told us that her family, including her husband and son, died in the gas chambers and crematoria. It is painful to question the testimony of memoirs of survivors of such traumatic events as the Holocaust. It has been said again and again that nothing as evil as the crimes perpetuated by the Nazis on the Jewish people before or since the Holocaust has or will occur again. However, whether this is true or not will depend on what we learn from history. And history is about the truth. The real witnesses of history are the survivors and what evidence the dead leave. If the witnesses and evidence cannot be believed, then who and what can? Memoirs that lack authenticity and credibility in one or more aspects damage the value of memory as a source of history. In the case of the memoir of Gazelle Pearl, she completely erased her daughter from family history and Holocaust history. Ella was a Holocaust survivor, as was Gazelle's sister Helen. Ella's story as a Holocaust survivor is fascinating, and her story and contribution to the building of the State of Israel is very impressive. Why did Pearl claim that Emery travelled to Auschwitz and was murdered in the gas chambers when the postcards clearly show he did not travel with the family? In truth, Emery was murdered by the Nazis trying to escape from the cruel, inhumane labour camp. He would be considered a man of courage, not, as the memoir indicated, a boy who passively went into the gas chambers. Only Pearl existed, and to me this is a major transgression by Pearl. Pearl was in Auschwitz. She endured inhumane conditions and suffered psychologically and emotionally. To survive, she acted with courage, determination, mastery, and she demonstrated the might of resilience and maturity. Yet there are parts of her story that are untrue and reflect on the credibility of her memoir as a work of history. I am not judging Pearl's actions as an abortionist or the many times she was forced to kill babies or for her part in selections and so on. All Jewish doctors face those ethical and moral dilemmas. The collective memory of Jewish doctors relating the same story with the same emotions and reactions prove authenticity. It is when there is blatant embellishment and or fiction written that brings into question the credibility and hence the authenticity of the memoir. By omission or commission, as in the case of Ella, Helen and Emery, they have suffered a great injustice. In most cases, survivors are the gatekeepers of history, and in the case of the survivors of the Holocaust, they not only witness to the unutterable evil of man, but they provide an insight into the human condition of ordinary people when under extreme adversity. At present, I'm doing research to write Ella and Helen back into Holocaust history. Thank you.